Because of my past and some alcohol and drug addiction, I ended up living in the streets for 4 years.
En tant de personne vivant avec une déficience intellectuelle, c'est pas toujours facile pour moi voir les autres.
When I found United Way, I was suffering from depression and anxieties.
Quand il y a eu le début de la pandémie, j'étais dans une résidence pour personnes aînées. J'ai été quand même plusieurs semaines seule dans mon appartement.
My wife Shanta lives with dementia. The doctor strongly recommended that we find some support. I gathered my strength and started looking for an adult day services program.
Reaching out to the United Way has been more helpful than we can actually imagine could have been.
Pour moi, Centraide m'a permis de sortir de l'isolation. Avec la formation de femme relais que j'ai reçue de l'organisme, donc je peux apprendre le fonctionnement de la société québécoise. Je peux accompagner les autres personnes immigrantes, les nouveaux immigrants ici.
When I was younger, I started going to one of the recreation center-based supports. I don't think I would be doing what I love today if it weren't for United Way. And like the only thing I can say is thank you.
Thanks to United Way, Shanta and I had 5 good years and we are looking forward to more.
Vous m'avez aidé à sortir, vraiment sortir en aimant la vie.
This was the greatest help, the greatest way I could recover, seeing self-compassion as a tool.
Today, I'm no longer a hard drug user, 52 years old, and I'm alive. So that's a success story.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for our virtual campaign kickoff for United Way. My name is Erin Jackson, and I am the Chief HR Officer at the University of Toronto, and it's my pleasure to be the host of today's event. Meric Gertler, President of the University of Toronto, and Kelly Hannah-Moffat, Vice President of People Strategy, Equity and Culture, are both with us today. Also with us are 2 very important guests, Daniele Zanotti, President and CEO of United Way Greater Toronto, and Kamisha Cox, founder of the Reading Partnership. Welcome, Daniele and Kamisha. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. As many of you are joining us remotely from beyond our campuses, I encourage you to reflect on the land you are situated on today. I also encourage you to learn about the Indigenous peoples who have made it home and who continue to live there. I'm a strong believer in United Way's work, and I'm proud to be a part of the University of Toronto's annual United Way campaign. We all know that poverty is hurting communities in the Greater Toronto region, and the COVID-19 pandemic has placed our most vulnerable communities at even greater risk. Demand for community services has exponentially increased since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, more than ever, our communities are experiencing barriers to accessing food, affordable housing, mental health supports, and employment. That is why we partner with United Way and why they need our generosity and support. United Way Greater Toronto has been on the front lines of addressing these issues throughout the pandemic. And with our help, they can continue to do so. For many years, the students, faculty, librarians, staff, and alumni of U of T have supported United Way. Today, we are renewing our partnership with United Way and launching our annual fundraising campaign. Our president, Meric Gertler, will speak more about U of T's long-standing partnership with United Way Greater Toronto. Over to you, President Gertler.
Thank you so much, Erin. Welcome, everybody. Special welcome to Daniele and Kamisha. On behalf of the University of Toronto, let me extend a warm welcome to everybody joining us today as we kick off the 2021 United Way campaign. For over 20 years now, the University of Toronto community has partnered with United Way Greater Toronto in its annual fundraising campaign. And I'm delighted and indeed proud to note that in that time, we have contributed over $20 million to the local community. United Way is the largest non-governmental investor in social services in the Greater Toronto area. In a typical year, United Way Greater Toronto delivers services to millions of people across Peel, Toronto, and York Region, reaching out to those individuals and families most in need. In the past year alone, United Way supported 575 social service agencies through 1,400 programs, helping 2.2 million people across Greater Toronto. Key to their operations are the community partners, organizations like the University of Toronto and its community who offer their generous support. With our 3 campuses across this dynamic and diverse city region, U of T and its surrounding communities share both opportunities and challenges. And in recent years, as you heard in the video earlier, the grips of a global pandemic have really accentuated issues of mental health, employment instability, poverty, and the rising costs of necessities such as food, housing, and transport. In fact, the demand for food banks and mental health services have spiked since the start of the pandemic. Hardly a surprise. These issues are not just topics of study for U of T researchers and students, but the unfortunate daily reality for many who live within our region. So it's for this reason that we continue to partner with United Way Greater Toronto to support the remarkable work that they do. I want to thank everyone who has generously contributed during the past campaigns, and I hope that you will consider doing so again this year. I have often said that a strong community makes a university stronger. Well, supporting United Way Greater Toronto is a wonderful way to make a real difference and to give back to the communities and the neighborhoods that lift the University of Toronto. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Gertler, for providing that context and for helping us launch our 2021 campaign. The generosity of our students, faculty, librarians, staff, and alumni for these many years has been truly inspiring. Also with us today is our Vice President of People Strategy, Equity and Culture, Kelly Hannah-Moffat. Since 2016, Kelly has worked with divisions and faculties across the Tri-Campus to create a more equitable environment here at U of T. She is here to share her thoughts on why U of T's partnership with United Way Greater Toronto is more essential this year than ever. Kelly?
Good afternoon, everyone. Like President Gertler, I'm very proud of U of T's more than 20-year partnership with United Way. As you'll hear in a moment, this partnership has made a significant difference to many members of our own community and to the GTA communities that surround 3 campuses. On a more personal level, I can say that there's many reasons to admire the work that United Way has accomplished and done both nationally and locally. The work of the United Way is based on best practice research, as well as its extensive on-the-ground experience of communities it serves. If you haven't already done so, I would recommend that you look at the reports on the United Way of the Greater Toronto website to see how data collected about poverty in Peel, York Region, and in Toronto informs the United Way's local strategies. This report shows how they work with the community to make very impactful and meaningful changes. With every 85 cents of a dollar raised by the United Way, it goes back to the community it serves. It's encouraging to see the concerted effort being made to understand where the support is most needed and to funding that support. There's also a deep understanding that informs United Way's assertion, you can't fight poverty without advancing equity. United Way recognizes that the most economically disadvantaged people in our society are often members of our racialized communities. They're individuals with disabilities, women, and members of the LGBTQ2S+ communities, and particularly impacted are those who have more than one of these identities. As you've already heard today, these are also the individuals who have been most affected by the pandemic in Canada and in societies worldwide. And since March of 2020, the United Way's pandemic response has been fast, efficient, and effective. Their support continues, recognizing that we are only just at the beginning to transition into recovery, and the process of recovery can leave many people behind. The list of recipients for the United Way's recent COVID relief grants shows the breadth of their impact. Some of their recipients include the Chippewas of Georgian Island First Nation, the Asian Community AIDS Service, African Community Services of Peel, and Connecting Women with Scarborough Services, and Youth Rising Above. With United Way funding these local agencies, they could provide a really wide range of supports, from food and clothing to access to laptops, transportation, and programming. As our United Way 2021 campaign launches at U of T, I'm really excited to see how we can help broaden United Way's impact in Toronto, Peel, and York region. Last year, in the middle of the impact, U of T managed to raise money for the United Way, and in fact, more than 2019. Our campaign raised $560,000 at a time when the United Way was forecasting a gap in being able to meet their community investment goals. I want to thank everyone on the Tri-Campus community who generously donated in 2020, including more than 500 staff, faculty, and librarians. And I hope that you will join me in building on the success of last year's campaign by offering your support in 2021. The U of T community can affirm its commitment both to each other and to our neighbors and the wider GTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. U of T's partnership with United Way Greater Toronto is such a natural fit for our institution. And as Kelly mentioned, the support of students, staff, faculty, and librarians during our annual fundraising campaign really can make a difference. Now, we are very lucky to have Daniele Zanotti with us today. Daniele is the President and CEO of United Way Greater Toronto. He is a long-standing United Way executive with more than 25 years experience working in the public and nonprofit sectors. Under his leadership, United Way Greater Toronto has launched new initiatives to foster community dialogue, invested in more targeted methods to assist individuals and communities in the GTA, and brought new social services to the communities in greatest need. Daniele is a University of Toronto alumnus, holding a master's degree from the Factor Inwintosh School of Social Work. Today, he is going to share the impact that the money raised at U of T has made to United Way Greater Toronto and their agency partners. Daniele.
Thank you, Erin, Kelly, Tom, and team, all of you for volunteering to lead this uprising of care for United Way. Thank you, Meric, for your leadership here and for your leadership for years at the United Way Campaign Cabinet, and more recently, our inclusive local economic work in Scarborough. Thank you, U of T, each and every one of you, for choosing to be boundless, outside your own fundraising campaign, outside your own university community, and spreading your care to neighborhoods across Peel, Toronto, and York region. Clearly, caring in a united way is part of your U of T DNA. Today, an invitation to join us again, or for the first time, to make a small and scaled gift to United Way. So little Daniele grew up in my grandfather's shoe shop in Italy. Nonno's bottega always had the smell of leather mixed with fresh bread just out of the oven, extra virgin olive oil and tomato squished on top. Oh my goodness, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Always full of paisani coming and going, Nonno sipping from this ubiquitous espresso cup with a smile ear to ear. And sometimes when he needed to stitch the needle right through the thick leather at an exact, tiny, precise point, he would pull out this cannocchiale and zoom right in so that the needle could get the tiny, precise spot. And sometimes when the person put their new shoes on to leave, Nonno would flip this cannocchiale around and watch as Maria slowly made her way stone step after stone step, then called her back, Maria, and graded the left heel so that it would land more perfect than before. This is just one of the secrets of the craft, Nonno whispered, knowing when to zoom in and zoom out. That's the secret of the United Way craft, the craft you make possible when you give. Because thanks to your donation in March 2020, when the world was in COVID lockdown, your gift provided flexible funding to our network of agencies so they could zoom in precisely to the tiny problem in your neighborhood, sneaking phone cards, free mobile devices to women and kids locked in domestic violence with their perpetrator, preparing hundreds of thousands of meals for isolated seniors right across the GTA, or providing online counseling so a suicidal youth could get access to a social worker and a psychiatrist in seconds, funding the Friendly Neighbors Hotline to provide counseling, food, support to thousands of isolated seniors thanks to 1,500 volunteers, the majority from University of Toronto's School of Medicine, Nursing, and Dentistry. And then United Way distributing much needed emergency COVID response to hyperlocal projects, 90% of them equity deserving groups, and 65% of that funding going to agencies big and small who had never received United Way funding before. And then United Way zooming out, partnering with the City of Toronto, the region of York, and the region of Peel to create community tables by neighborhood and a Black Resilience Table and Aboriginal Social Service Council as well, bringing hundreds of agencies together virtually day after day to solve issues, converting a shuttered factory into a food depot in Scarborough, opening a transitional shelter for women and kids finally fleeing abuse who needed to self-isolate before they could enter our shelter system, working with developers to convert low-rise housing into permanent, affordable housing for our chronically homeless in York region. Community tables that hired residents in North Etobicoke as local ambassadors, knocking on every single door in social housing so that they could increase vaccination rates in a GTA COVID hotspot. A United Way community model that was then scaled right across this province. And at U of T, partnering with your School of Cities on the first of its kind Leading Social Justice Fellowship, bringing together individuals from the public, private, and community sector who are committed to rebuilding an equitable and inclusive region, with our first cohort of 51 fellows graduated in June. And our place-based inclusive work in Scarborough, already establishing a joint construction venture that is owned 49% by ACON and 51% by the community, hiring residents into local construction jobs as we speak. This is your donation at work, right at the intersection of poverty, equity, and geography, needed again now. As so many of us are focused on return to school, some semblance of return to work, our agencies on the front line are steeped in the deepest need. That's what it's called in crisis theory, the deepest need. It's the first wave of people seeking support as soon as a crisis seems to lift for the rest of us. And it's not necessarily more numbers. In fact, many of our agencies are seeing less people in more dire need. Spikes in suicide calls from known and first-time callers. Successful opioid interventions on our front lines that never make the headlines. And tragic opioid overdoses that do. Entire families sleeping in cars across the 905, parking lot after parking lot because they can't afford rent. And that mom and her kid who finally flee domestic violence, being escorted by a United Way worker straight to our ER departments with levels of physical and emotional trauma and violence never seen before by our professionals. The deepest need right now on the front line of our agencies. Your gift to United Way, invested not in one agency or program, but a network of 280 agencies, remains the single best solution to recovering from this crisis faster and equitably. Because we know every buck we invest in this network of care today, every buck saves us $9 in long-term social assistance, criminal justice, and emergency health costs tomorrow. Now, needed more than ever when our agencies are steeped in the deepest need. Your gift, zooming in and zooming out to change lives. So I asked my Nano, what's the other secret of the craft, Nano? And he says, shh, come here. He shows this ubiquitous espresso cup, tips it to my 7-year-old lips, where for the first time I taste the beauty of fermented vino. And he says, a sip of vino in the morning, a sip at lunchtime, and a few sips at dinner. That's the secret, but don't tell Nonna. By the way, no vino in here, U of T friends, just espresso. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniele, for those incredibly inspiring words. I know that the United Way Greater Toronto's annual fall fundraising campaign is an exciting but very hectic time for you and your team, and we are so incredibly grateful to you for joining us today. As we launch this year's U of T campaign, it's incredibly motivating to hear how the past generosity of our U of T community has supported a range of United Way initiatives. And we will certainly be excited to learn a year from now about the impacts that this year's campaign will have had. Our final speaker today is Kamisha Cox. Kamisha is an award-winning educator and social innovator whose work straddles the worlds of community development, education, and the arts. She is also a University of Toronto alumna and holds a Master of Education from OISE. She is the founding director of the Reading Partnership, a Toronto-based charity focused on promoting and improving literacy in low-income, high-potential communities. The Reading Partnership is just one of the many organizations that United Way Greater Toronto supports. Kamisha is a member of United Way Greater Toronto's Speakers Bureau and is here to share the impact and importance of investing in Black-led, community-based initiatives. Kamisha.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Erin. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always exciting when I get the opportunity to share about the Reading Partnership, the passion project I've been working on for the past 10 years in a community I've called home for over 25 years, Kingston, Galloway, Orton Park, or KGO for short. It's always extra special when I get to talk about how United Way has played a significant role in our work over the years, and they actually hold the title as our first official funder. And I'd like to take a little bit of time to tell you how it all came to be. In 2009, I graduated from Teachers College, excited to get started in the classroom, but there were very few jobs for new teachers in Ontario. So I left and I became a supply teacher in the UK. And after a week of supply teaching at a school, they decided that they wanted to hire me, and they said, you know, we want you to stay on, we want you to be our literacy specialist. So straight out of Teachers College, I didn't have the experience for that title, but decided I'd take the opportunity. And for the year, I worked to roll out a literacy intervention program for students in grade 7 to grade 9 who were reading at primary levels. So I'm talking kids in grade 7 reading at a grade 2 level, and in some cases, not reading at all. And I always thought, how is this possible that kids make it to grade 7 without the skills they need to succeed in school and in life? And where are their parents? And of course, their parents were...
Okay, I don't know that Kamisha is going to be able to rejoin us, unfortunately. This is the way of the world now that we are dealing with Zoom meetings and sessions. It's unfortunate. We were looking forward to hearing from her about her insights on how the money from United Way has really benefited our local community in the work that she does. So that does bring us to the end of our program today. I would like to thank President Meric Gertler, Vice President Kelly Hannah-Moffat, Daniela Zanotti, and also Kamisha Cox for joining us and speaking with us today. I would also like to thank the organizers of today's events. As I mentioned, there has been an email go out with a link. Our campaign at U of T runs from today until December the 31st. If you've already donated today or have contributed in the past, thank you. You have shown incredible leadership and generosity, and I encourage everyone who is able to make a donation this year to give generously now. As you've heard, your donations to United Way help individuals and make a lasting impact on our communities. As Daniele so adeptly said, they zoom in and they zoom out. So with that, I will close the session. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today.